Everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the webinar of how HOA management companies are winning more management contracts with Google and AI. I am John Leutermann from Big Rock Marketing. Just a few housekeeping rules to get started. So Brianna from the Big Rock team is in the room, and she will be able to answer any sort of technical questions that you may have. You can use the chat feature on the right side of the screen for that. Also, there is a tab for handouts where you can download the deck from today's presentation, as well as you will be receiving an email with the full recording that you could pass along to anyone else on your team who may not have been able to make it today. The recording will be coming shortly after our call today. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the presentation, but feel free to type your questions in anytime using the chat feature on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm John Leutermann, president of Big Rock Marketing. I have over 15 years of digital marketing experience and a proven track record of driving growth for businesses within the community association management industry. Today, we're going to be discussing how board members are using Google and AI search tools, the key Google and visibility factors, how review, authority, and online credibility are being used today, and then some specific strategies for your business to win, and then also some Q&A at the end. So the buying process has changed, and it continues to evolve for board members who are looking for management companies. So previously, the majority of board members were getting suggestions through referrals from other board members. Businesses had local reputation and relationships with other boards or other community members who were giving them those recommendations, and they weren't really doing too much online research. Well, that has definitely changed now. Now board members are using a Google first decision-making process. And so Google now is the primary tool that people are using, as well as other AI search tools. Now there's a heavy reliance on reviews and ratings. So people are trusting their peers for recommendations based on what based on business that they've done with that company and how they've rated them or reviewed them on Google or various other review sites. They check out people's website and they perceive their brand through their website. And then now the increasing use of AI tools for recommendations. So the one thing that's important to know is that oftentimes before you've even spoken to a board member, they've already made a decision about whether they're going to contact your company or not. So what they're doing in their research is creating a short list silently. So before they contact you, they're creating a short list of companies that they're interested in contacting. And the good majority of companies never make it into their consideration. So their first impressions of you are happening digitally before you even speak to them at all. So three potential outcomes of that research process is that if you don't show up on Google and AI search tools, you're eliminated instantly. And they don't even know that you exist. So you're not in the running. If you show up weak, and so weak is not showing up high or showing up with a poor review rating, you'll be perceived as risky. If you show up strong, so that you have high visibility and a strong reputation, online reviews, you'll be seen as safe and as a professional choice for them. And again, this is happening without you being in the room, without you even knowing it's happening. So unfortunately, the reality is that you don't get a second chance to make the first impression. So what are boards actually doing behind the scenes? So they might be searching HOA management companies near me, the name of their city, and then condo management companies, and a variety of other search terms. They're opening multiple tabs and they're comparing companies. They're looking for professionalism, experience, and reputation through your reviews. And the reality is that they're spending minutes, not hours, forming opinions. So it's super important to be present where they're searching, because if not, they aren't doing deep research to go further to look for more companies. They're often finding the first few companies that look good to them and then starting to make their calls or submitting web forms from there. And so I'm sure everyone knows that AI is here and it's being used much more often. And so some of the common AI tools are ChatGPT, Gemini, and Google AI mode. So Google is actually transitioning its traditional search model into AI type searches. And so that is happening at a pretty rapid pace. So the vast majority of management companies' traffic is still coming from Google. Um, I do see instances of traffic from ChatGPT, but it's a much smaller percentage. I think it could have been larger, except that Google reacted very quickly when ChatGPT was introduced and created their own version that is a very similar experience to ChatGPT. And so the vast majority of people are used to Google. They like Google, and they're in a routine to use Google on a regular basis. And so Google now has some pretty good AI tools built into its site. So the vast majority of traffic is still coming from Google, but I would definitely pay attention to ChatGPT, Gemini, and some of the other tools that are out there as well. Um, People are using the AI tools for recommendations for management companies. They're using it to compare management companies. They're using it to ask for best of lists, like best management companies in this area, best management companies for gated communities, those types of things. Um, and so now Google is now showing their AI generated summaries at the top in paragraph form. And so one of the big shifts from traditional search to AI search is that people tend to ask more questions than simply typing in keywords. And so we see more questions. Some of the things might be along the lines of who are the best rated HOA management companies near me, who are the top HOA management companies in Milwaukee. Um, AI is compressing the research process and narrowing the field down for board members even faster. So AI isn't guessing at the results, it's aggregating data. So from all of its sources, it's pulling all the data together in real time and presenting results. Um, One interesting study I'd recently seen um, is that if you have 10 people in a room on different devices and they're all doing the same AI search, you will get different results. So there is a pretty heavy overlap, but it is interesting that you don't get exactly the same results from user to user. Um, from a strategy standpoint, I don't think there's much we can do about that other than just follow the SEO and AI search best practices to do everything you can to show up as often as possible, as high as possible. But it is interesting that the AI search tools do give you a different result when asking this exact same question. Um, so some of the places that AI is pulling its data from is Google business profiles, reviews and ratings, both on Google and other sites as well. Your website is a huge source of information. Local SEO signals like backlinks and different online profiles. And then also third-party directory sites like Yelp and BBB. So Yelp and BBB, I'll talk about a little bit later, but they're some of the most authoritative sites, and they're sending very strong signals to the AI search tools. So AI reflects your existing digital footprint. And so if your online presence is weak or inconsistent, AI won't have a reason to recommend you. So the three pillars of winning online are visibility, credibility, and authority. And so with visibility, the question to ask is, do you appear when boards are searching for management companies? The credibility part is, do you look trustworthy and established? And the authority part is, do you stand out as the best option? And so visibility gets you seen, credibility builds trust, and authority gets you chosen. And so those are the questions to ask when you're taking a look at your online presence, especially in comparison to your local competitors. So pillar one, Google visibility. It's super important to make sure that you have a well-optimized Google business profile. And I'm actually going to stop here and take a quick poll. So if everybody could please answer the poll question on the right. The question is, have you ever searched your own company on Google like a board would? We'll give everyone a moment to answer that. Okay. It looks like the vast majority of people did say yes regularly. So good. You guys are in the minority. Most of the time, people aren't searching their own company as much as they should. So that is great. And I would highly recommend doing that. Um, One thing that you will want to keep in mind is that when you're doing those searches, you'll want to use an incognito window. Google does have personalization. So if you've been on your own website and then you go and do some searches, it will tend to favor your website and put it higher than it naturally would appear for someone else. So I would recommend doing that if you're using Chrome, use an incognito window to do those searches. So another important factor is ranking in the local map pack. Having a strong website is super important for Google visibility. It's one of the major factors that's used in evaluating your business and determining where you should be ranked. Um, and by strong website, some of the things that I mean are, a page for each type of community you serve. So, for example, if you serve condos, you should have a condo page. If you serve townhomes, you should have a townhome page. If you serve gated communities, high rises, any of those type of communities, you should make sure to have a page for each type of community that you serve. And the reason is that, well, first of all, it explicitly tells Google in a detailed description that you do serve that type of community. So when someone is searching for it, it gives you the best chance of showing up. In addition, if hypothetically you and another competitor have the exact same website and one website has just a bulleted list of the type of communities that they serve and the other website has a full dedicated page for each type of community that they serve, the one who has the full dedicated page will almost always outrank the one that over the one who just has a bulleted list of the types of communities that they serve. I would also recommend service area pages. So these are city pages. So they're a page that talks about the services that you can provide in a particular city. And so these pages perform exceptionally well in Google, better than I would think they should this day and age, but they work really well, and I would highly recommend that strategy. So you just want to make sure they are unique enough. Google does have a duplicate content filter. So if the pages are too similar, then it could filter out one of the pages. So just having unique pages is the best way to go. Some of the things that you can do to make them unique are to have testimonials that are different. Testimonials from that particular city. That's always a good one. Having some community specific information mixed in is good because that'll be unique to each page. Another recommendation is to have board member resources, and you want to make sure that these board member resources are hyper local. So either city, region, or possibly state. And the reason for that is that I know a lot of management companies who write blog posts and they're writing about the right kind of topics. But the issue is that when you write just generally about a topic and not a location specific, you're competing with every management company across the country who's writing about that topic. And so it makes it very hard to compete. And even if you do win and you're one of the top ranked articles for that particular topic, the majority of the traffic will be from outside of your service area. So that's why it's super important to target those board member resources locally and to talk about, to put the local spin, the local angle on that topic. You want to make sure that you're targeting service and city keywords throughout your content. You also want to make sure you have strong calls to action throughout the site, so that you can encourage board members to actually contact you when they're on the right pages. And you also want to make sure that your business information is consistent across the internet. It's items like name, address, phone number, URL. If your business has moved in the last few years, that is something you definitely want to take a close look at. Um, you don't want to confuse Google. Sometimes if it sees multiple addresses out there, it doesn't know which one is real, and it won't give you as high a visibility as you could. So next, we're going to talk about pillar 2, and we're going to ask our second poll question. So the second poll question is, how confident are you in your online reviews compared to your competitors? So we'll give everyone a moment to answer this question. All right. Looks like we have a mix here of very confident and somewhat confident, which is good. It is important to keep a close eye on your reviews. This industry is very challenging when it comes to reviews. Companies that have a 3-star out of 5-star Google rating or better are actually doing pretty good. It is a tough industry because you guys are getting evaluated based on rules that you did not set, but that you have to enforce. And so when you see a management company that has, 4 stars or better, it's almost always because they have a strategy internally to help obtain those reviews. And so reviews are becoming even more important, especially to AI search tools. And so some of the big sites that you want to pay attention to, Google, of course, but also the BBB and Yelp. And so most management company owners and executives that I talk to don't realize that you can actually have customers leave reviews on the BBB. So most people are familiar with the formal complaint process and the mediation process with the BBB, but there's also a review section on there. And so that's an easy win. I can tell from the research that I do that these AI search tools are going and looking at your BBB profile to determine who to show in their results. And so you definitely want to make sure that you have at least a handful of reviews, of good reviews on the BBB. And certainly if you haven't checked it, didn't even realize it existed, and you go and look and you have, I've seen this many times where somebody will check and they didn't realize that you had reviews on there, and there's like 3 or 5 just 1 stars just from people who just complained 3-5 years ago, whatever. But in that case, the best way to counteract that is to do an internal campaign to make sure that you're getting 5-star reviews on there. And board members are great to ask for that. I'm sure a lot of your managers will have good relationships with certain board members that would immediately be willing to help you out there. You can also ask homeowners as well. If you've helped a homeowner out and they're super happy, that's a great time to ask for the review, as well as vendors. If you have a good relationship with some of your vendors, there's no reason why they can't leave reviews for you as well. So the quantity, so the number of reviews that you have signals popularity, or like what size company you are. The quality, so the star rating, signals your service level, so like how good of a service provider you are. And then the recency, so how many recent reviews you have, shows your consistency, that you're consistently working with companies on a regular basis. And then the responses to the reviews signal professionalism. So I would highly recommend responding to reviews, both positive and negative. Um, and just making sure that if it is a negative one, which happens to every management company out there, um, just to keep in mind that when you're writing the response to that review, you're not really writing it to the person who wrote the review. They're basically a lost cause in most cases. You're writing the response for the next potential board member who's doing research on your company to see how you responded. So I know it can be super difficult, but oftentimes the best thing is to just take responsibility. Um, I think it's okay to explain yourself a little bit, but don't become defensive. Don't blame the other person. Just kind of, where it makes sense, say that we're training, we're going to do better next time if it's something that was a legitimate problem, or just kind of like stating some facts and saying that you're sorry that you feel this way, and sort of move on from there. Um, like I said, it's not for the person who wrote the review anymore. It's for the people who want to evaluate you as a potential provider. Like when something happens, and in this industry, things happen, right? How does that provider respond? And so that's what you're really being evaluated on. So keep that in mind when writing reviews or responding to reviews. So one last point here is that people trust patterns and not outliers. So if you see and I see this all the time. If you see a restaurant that has like 5 or 10 all 5-star reviews, like my radar goes up. Like I don't believe that that's possible. So I think that it's okay when those negative reviews come in, as long as you have a plan to continuously get 5-star positive reviews. So a company with 80 reviews and a 4.6 rating will beat a perfect 10 5-star reviews every time. Just because people don't trust that. That's not reality. And then pillar number 3 is authority positioning. So, and this is your website, right? So when they come check out your website, is it clean, modern? Is it easy to navigate? Can they find what they're looking for? Is there content that educates HOA boards? Is there clear messaging and service differentiation? Is there strong branding and visuals? If a board member can't quickly understand what it is that you do and why you're different, they'll move on. You know, and I would say I would highly recommend adding trust symbols. So things that people will recognize, things like the CAI logo, if you're a member of the CAI, the BBB accreditation logo, if you're accredited, if you've won any local awards, those are super powerful. And then testimonials from real customers. That is super helpful. There's also, if you have a WordPress website, there is some plugins that you can add to your website to have your Google reviews automatically streamed down there. And there is a way that you can restrict it to, let's say 4-star and 5-star reviews only, or if you wanted to do just 5-star reviews, you can do that as well. But what's nice is that it updates them in real time, so that you have, without having to, have your web developer touch the site, you can have it updated in real time. So here's an example of what a winning company looks like. So they show up in the top 3 Google rankings for key searches. They have 50 to 150 or more strong reviews. They have a 4+ star rating on Google. They have consistent branding across all platforms, all anywhere on the internet where their information is found, it's consistent. They have a page for each type of community that they serve. They have a page for every city they serve. They have helpful board member educational website content. There's clear geographic targeting, so that when somebody comes to visit the site, they can, in 5 seconds, tell that you serve their area. And when you do all these things, these companies aren't the ones chasing leads. They're having leads coming to them automatically. So what a losing company looks like, if you're hard to find in search, if you have few or outdated reviews, if you have a low review score, old or confusing website, a website that doesn't look good on mobile devices, I would I would encourage you to double check your website on a mobile device, as we're approaching about 50% of web traffic for management companies is coming through mobile devices now, and the other 50 is from desktop. If your messaging is generic, inconsistent, online present, and what's unfortunate is that I've seen some really good long-standing companies that have been in business for 20, 30, 40 years. And it's not that you're a worse company, it's that you look worse online. There's some phenomenal companies that just haven't invested yet in their online presence, in a good website. And it makes it look like they're the lesser company, but that isn't actually the case. They, oftentimes do much better than their competitors as far as service level. So that's something I would definitely take a look at with an honest set of eyes. So when you start to invest time and resources in building all of these things that I've been talking about, it's a compounding effect. So when you have better visibility, you get more inquiries. More inquiries leads to more clients. More clients leads to more reviews. More reviews leads to stronger rankings. And that's when the market leaders pull further ahead. And so for the companies that fall behind, it's much harder to catch up, because it is an exponential rating over time. Like, as you start to do these things, the snowball starts to build and build and build, and it's hard to slow down, and it's hard to catch up to. So my recommendation would be to start small and just start to focus on various aspects, one aspect at a time, and slowly build momentum. So here are some practical strategies you can implement. So to fully optimize your Google business profile, and by optimize, I mean having all of your correct categories filled in, having all of your services filled in, having descriptions for all the services, having some good photos on there, making sure all the fields are filled in, making sure your hours are accurate, your phone number is accurate, making sure everything's fully accurate on there. And create a consistent review generation process internally. So the management companies that are winning at reviews are the ones who are having their managers ask each and every time there's a positive experience with either a board member, a homeowner, or a vendor. So it's super important. People are 20 times more likely to write a negative review than they are a positive one. So the odds are against you. If for the companies that don't have any internal strategy, you will have a 3-star or lower rating. The ones that are 4-star and above have done something internally to encourage people to leave reviews. They just don't, in this industry, they don't come in naturally. The positive reviews don't come in naturally at a high enough rate to counteract the negative reviews. So you definitely need to have an internal strategy to make sure that you're keeping your review score high. You can improve your website clarity and messaging. So one of the things that I always encourage people to do is, if you look at your website for 3 seconds, the homepage of your website for 3 seconds, could somebody tell what it is that you do and for who you do it for? And so I know some people like to get kind of creative with wording and things, but if it's not obvious, you lose people's interest and they leave. So that's just one thing to be careful with. And again, you're probably hearing me repeat some of the same things. That's because they're that important. But adding educational content for boards, that's super important. You definitely want to have that, both to, once somebody's on your site, to be able to prove your knowledge and experience level, but also for attracting people to the website. I've seen some people who have companies that have board member resource sections that are well built out can get a substantial portion of their traffic through those pages. And so it's super important. Again, the location specific pages perform exceptionally well. The pages for each type of community that you manage also work really well. And I always tell people a lot of times done is better than perfect. So focus on high impact pages. If you know every word isn't exactly perfect and everybody can't agree on it, that's okay. Um, I would say just get it up there as long as the information isn't inaccurate. Um, go with it. I usually say like once you're to the 80% mark, it's okay to push it live. Otherwise, you could sit there hemming and hawing over it for very long and not getting the credit from that page. So, and for most businesses, they don't need a massive overhaul. They just need targeted and gradual improvements. So here are some additional tips about how to become AI recommended. So again, strong and consistent online data. And so the way I describe it is you want to build a digital footprint. And so there's hundreds, thousands of these sites out there that are considered to be like authoritative sites. And so they're like places where you can have an online profile. They're going to be directory type sites. They're going to be just local community sites, like having a link from the CAI, making sure that on your B2B profile you have your information, making sure your website link is on there, but that anywhere that you can have a profile, you have an online profile, and that information is consistent. You want to make sure that you have high quality keyword rich content. So just explaining in your content what it is that you do, who you do it for, and where you do it. Just making it very obvious. Because if we don't tell Google and the AI search tools, it has no way of knowing. So we need to make it very obvious in your content. And then again, the positive review signals, and especially for AI, I'm seeing Google being important, BBB, Yelp, and then Reddit. And so you've probably done Google searches or AI searches, and you see that Reddit keeps coming up over and over and over. And that's been the case for about a year now. Reddit is super important. And I think the reason why Reddit is so important is because it's harder to, I guess, market on Reddit. It's harder to like sort of cheat the system on Reddit because Reddit is like real people giving their real feedback on various businesses. And so AI search tools and Google look at that as a highly authoritative site, and they're actually like reading through forums. So like, for example, somebody might ask, who is the best HOA management company in San Francisco? And these tools are reading the responses to see who they should include in their responses. And so this one's a little bit harder than like a Google, a BBB, or a Yelp, where you could just send a homeowner a link to leave your review on your profile. So Reddit takes a little bit more effort. I would recommend looking for threads in your area that are discussing management companies, and make sure they're recent. A thread from 5 years ago that hasn't had a comment in 3 years probably isn't beneficial. But and then you probably have a handful of people that board members that would do anything for you and would love to leave you a review. So on Reddit, you could send them the link to the thread and ask them to leave a comment. So it's not as easy as just leaving a review, but they have to have an account and they have to go in and comment, and then it is moderated to make sure that it's not like fake. So, but those comments are super beneficial, and they're definitely influencing the results on AI search tools. And then also you want to make sure you have clear service and location relevance throughout your content. If multiple sources say that you're a top company, AI will reflect that. And so, if you're on Yelp and you search HOA management companies and then your city, if you search Google and you search HOA management companies near me, are you consistently showing in the top results there on those two sites? If so, there's a good chance you're going to be doing good in AI as well. So AI has definitely been advancing quickly, but the HOA management industry is still underserved. Many of your competitors lack a strong digital presence, and few are actively optimizing for AI right now. So early adopters are definitely going to have a major advantage over their competitors. Um, the window is still open, but it won't be for too much longer. And I think one of the other added pressures is that a lot of the national companies or the PE firms are coming in and they have huge marketing budgets and they're learning about AI and they're implementing these things and making it much harder for smaller independent companies to compete. So now is the time. And I just mentioned, because of the snowball effect, early movers will be able to win disproportionately because it'll just be so much harder for the competitors to catch up at this point. So some of the key takeaways, if you're not visible, you're not considered. So board members, if they don't know that you exist, you won't be in the running. And then if you're not credible, so if they're not seeing, 4-star plus reviews, then they're not going to trust you. And then when they look at your website from an authoritative standpoint, if you're not authoritative, you're not chosen. And AI is helping accelerate all this for people who are doing the research. So this is the new baseline. It's not an advanced strategy anymore. This is what's happening now. So you definitely want to be aware of it. Do what you can. So in summary, HOA boards are researching you before you ever speak to them, and you're not aware of it. Google and AI are now deciding who gets considered and who doesn't. Your online presence directly impacts trust, credibility, and opportunity. The companies that are showing up strong and have high visibility in Google and AI search tools are winning more contracts consistently. Small improvements in visibility and reputation can create a major competitive advantage. So I know I've presented a lot of information today. The most important thing is to start small and just slowly build upon it. And the gap between top performing companies and everyone else is growing. And so, especially with the increased competition from national companies and from PE-backed firms, it's super important to get started on this if you haven't already, or to continue and make a strong push to keep going strong. The opportunity is still wide open for companies willing to act, but that window is closing. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We'll be jumping into Q&A. So you can use the chat feature on the right-hand side of the screen to ask any questions that you may have, and we will answer all of them. We're also offering a free competitor analysis. If you'd like to take a look and see how your business compares to the local competitors, you can either go to BigRockOnline/webinar, or you can use the sign up link on the screen to sign up, where you can put in up to 3 competitors, and we will meet and discuss and go over and compare your website and your online presence to theirs. Also, I put my contact information on the screen. If anyone has any questions, any marketing questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And we'll give everyone a minute here to type in their questions into the chat, and then I will start answering them. All right, Brianna, you can start asking the questions now.
Okay, great. So we have some questions. The first one that someone asked is, with limited time, where should we focus our efforts first?
That's a good question. I would definitely say that your website is a great place to start, especially the new content. So having strong content is super important. If Google and AI search tools can't read it on your website, they don't know that you do it. And so the 2 most important types of pages would be a page for each type of community that you manage, and then a page for each city that you serve. Those would be the 2 areas that I would start. That's where I would start my efforts.
Okay, great. Another person asked, our site is old. Should we rebuild before starting any efforts to improve?
Well, that's a good question. I would say I would have to take a look. It would depend on the current state of your site. If you have the resources, building a new website is no easy task. It oftentimes takes several months to get it completed. So if you're, like for example, if you don't have the items that I just mentioned, the pages for each type of community that you serve and a page for each city that you serve, um, as you're building your new website, if that's what you decide that you want to do, as you're building the site, I would start to put the new content on the old site and the new site. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until the new site launches to get any sort of credit for it. And so I would try to do those things simultaneously if you have the resources to do so. But so I would say you don't have to build a new site always. If your site is old, that you don't like the look and feel and it just needs a redesign, then I would recommend, as you're building the new site, start to put the new content on the old site and then also add it to the new site as well.
Okay, perfect. Another person asked, we have mostly bad reviews on Google. How can we change that?
That's a good question. So if you have mostly bad reviews, they probably were just coming in naturally. And so an internal strategy is the best way to go. Um, Tasking your managers with requesting those reviews on a regular basis from every positive experience that they've had with a board member, a homeowner, or a vendor. And so I know that some companies, if you bring that up in a meeting and you say, "Hey, we need to ask for reviews," you might get a few the first week, and then it sort of drops off. So it really needs to be a consistent message over and over, and hold the managers accountable for that. I know some companies, they will offer some sort of a gift card or a dollar amount or something every time that their name is mentioned in a review, and that definitely helps with remembering to ask. Um, but I would say that, yeah, you definitely want to do something internally that it makes it automatic so that they are just asking on a regular basis. Of course, if it's a negative situation that you're working on and person isn't ultimately satisfied with how you responded, then you don't ask that person. So it's only the positive experiences that you would be asking for a review. But those are the best ways to do it. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, and then we have one more question. So this person said, we have some large national companies in our market. How can we compete with a smaller budget?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's an increasing problem that I'm seeing in a lot of markets these days. So I would I would say that the things that we talked about today. So reviews are super helpful. A strong online presence, having reviews on on Google, BBB, Yelp, Reddit, working on your website, improving all those things. Um, Improving your Google business profile, making sure that that's up to speed. But also another really good thing is that, so a lot of the national sites, they have strong large websites, but a lot of them don't dive deep at the local level. And so where I see a lot of opportunities are going to be like those board member resource, like blog posts that are very local or like hyper local focused. Um, those ones work really well because a lot of times the national companies don't have that, as well as making sure you optimize your pages throughout your site for your service area, by mentioning the city that you serve. Like if you serve, let's say, like Houston, the greater Houston area, making sure that you mention that throughout your content, because the national companies, they can't do that because they serve multiple states, multiple areas. And so that's one advantage that you can have, is just being able to work in the local keywords, as well as the local resources. So being more hyper local is something that they wouldn't be able to do, and that will help you gain a little bit of an advantage. But unfortunately, they're huge websites that are very authoritative in Google and AI's eyes. because of the strength of their domains and all the pages that they have. They're hard to compete with, but I think doing all those things that we talked about today will definitely give you the best chance of competing. Were there any other questions at all? Looks like that was it. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for your time today. I really enjoyed doing the webinar and hope it was beneficial for you. As mentioned before, you will be getting a recording of the webinar shortly after this call. Thank you so much, and please reach out if you have any questions.